All right, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It is September 12th. My name is Drew Hanna. I'm the Deputy Ops in the South Branch. I'll be your host for tonight. It is our monthly all hands call. A few house rules before we get started here, as I mute Carl. Just a couple of call outs. If you're not one of the dedicated presenters, please self monitor your microphones. I know those little devils slip off all the time, but because we do tend to get a lot of folks on this call, you get that weird echo effect where your microphone will rip broadcast back the presenter and it kind of gets all twisted. So just please keep an eye on that. If you have questions, feel free to either drop them in the chat, or you can stick around to the end. We'll happily hang on and discuss any questions you might want to have about, Team Rubicon, any of the topics covered tonight, or just the life, universe, and everything. We try to be an all-service organization for you. Um, on beyond that, I did see almost a few more questions than usual, of folks saying they didn't have the call prior to. So just if you are one of those folks who didn't have this call populate in your calendar and you're like, Drew, how do I get in the invite list? Hey, hit up your ops associate. They all have the invite. We'll get you on the distro and make sure that you don't miss any calls moving ahead. But if you ever have any doubts, they are always that second Tuesday of the month at 1900 Central, 2000 Eastern. We try to keep it same bat time, same bat channel, so you never have to fear missing out on all the fun. So that being said, we do have a little bit of a specialty edition in your South Branch All Hands tonight. If you have been with us on previous calls, you know our usual agenda. We'll start off with sort of a situation update, run through all the sections, give you updates on ops, functions. We'll go through all the geographies, and then close it out with just a little bit of a moment of Zen and some leadership wrap up. Because we are just coming off an EOC activation, that means a few things. So at the beginning of the season, if you were with us, we talked about that as the Team Rubicon Super Bowl, and that it was. We'll kind of go through all the nuts and bolts of it in this call. But so because we just hit the big event, that's going to be the focus for our call, is a little bit of a retrospective and unpacking of all the good shit that's been done, all the good shit that we're looking forward to doing through the life of these operations. We'll also kind of talk about some of the other stuff that's been going on in the branch, proving that we in the South Branch are fully capable of walking and chewing gum at the same time. It might sound super simple and straightforward, but I'll tell you, it's pretty cool that we've hit this stage of being able to run so many things simultaneously across the branch. And then, as always, we will close up with San offering some inspiring words to close out the night. So that's the agenda. Let's jump right into it. Starting everyone out with just a very brief update on the current situation, as far as tropical weather and everything else goes. If you guys have been following along in the Watchtower in our Gray Skies team, you've no doubt seen a bunch of talk about Hurricane Lee, which is currently churning up off the eastern seaboard out there. For a long time in the South Branch, we were worried that Lee might not make the turn that it's currently in the middle of making, and head straight into Florida or perhaps Georgia or the Carolinas. They all were in play at various points throughout this hurricane's prediction track. There also was a hope that it would turn back to sea. But where we are currently in its development cycle, we do have pretty strong model alignment, that Hurricane Lee will be making the turn tonight into tomorrow, head basically straight north. It'll start weakening. It's a major hurricane right now. It'll probably drop down to either a much lower category of hurricane, perhaps even a tropical storm, before making landfall in the northeastern United States, or Atlantic Canada. If that causes you to breathe a tremendous sigh of relief that the storm won't be a significant problem, we're not quite out of those woods yet. Superstorm Sandy, which was, right back in 2012, very famous for $70 billion worth of damage in New York and New Jersey. And that storm came ashore as a post-tropical storm. I do believe it did have some hurricane force winds when it came on shore. But the big damage from that was just, the giant spread of the wind field and the significant storm surge it brought with it as it came on shore. So definite risks from that as Lee moves north. So the organization will continue to watch closely whether it falls within our jurisdiction as Team Rubicon USA or Team Rubicon Canada has the lead. There is definitely a possibility for something that might be a major event that we would be called to support. I called it out in that chat thread. If you see that happen, basically we will have sort of the standard notification packages go out. The standard rules will apply, right? Like list your full availability if you want to be selected, and that will increase your chances. But certainly it'll be who has the availability and the skill set that fits the need on the ground. That's what drives that selection process. And we'll go from there to respond to Lee when it does make contact and landfall, probably over this coming weekend. So a lot more to come on that front. But at least the South Branch is out of the bullseye this time, and we won't be dealing with that storm directly. A few other things to note. You have Hurricane Margot churning around out there. Margot will remain a fish storm, only really notable for being the fifth hurricane of the season. And then just right south of Margot there is 98 Lima. 98 Lima is an invest currently sitting at 20% chance of development. It'll probably tick up over the next couple of days. And a lot of modeling does show that following sort of a similar path to Lee, where it'll kind of curve up over the Leeward Islands there. And then whether it continues on towards the eastern seaboard, turns north, turns back to sea, a little bit more of an open question. So that'll be a storm that we watch a little bit more closely over the coming week. But just all in all, very good reminders that even though we've had a big event, we currently have a significant response that's ongoing. We're very much in the heart of hurricane season, and there's still a lot of ball game left to play here. So very possible that we kind of go through this whole process that we're about to talk through one more time, or even more than that, before 2023 comes to a conclusion. Now, that being said, right, we do have a lot to talk about over the work that's been done over the last month, because we had an EOC activation in response to Hurricane Idalia. So the EOC formally deactivated yesterday. It activated on August 21st, deactivated yesterday, so about 22 days worth of full activation. In that time, tons of outputs from that team. So fielding 5 recon teams, 2 route clearance teams, standing up 2 staging areas, and establishing 3 Type 3 FOBs. Hugely, hugely thankful to everyone who is on this call, supported that effort directly, indirectly, on the ground, in the EOC, remotely. It was truly an all-hands effort to make it happen. A couple of call outs on like the structure and nature of that response. We had a lot of discussion on the staff side and in the EOC leadership team. We were coming into that activation a little bit behind the 8 ball, right? The nature of Idalia and its spin up really put us in a tough spot because the way the storm developed, it was sort of a tropical storm, maybe an issue, maybe not, but really began to rapidly intensify Sunday into Monday, which really only left us about 48 hours from that formal designation as a Cat 3 landfall to begin the preparatory work that we normally would have begun 5 days to a week ahead of time. So really compressed, condensed timeline for us to respond to. The fact that we were able to field all of these teams as quickly as we were, and had all of these things established within a week of landfall, just hugely incredible and impressive effort. But also very notable from my perspective how the South Branch was so well represented in the teams and the leadership. and the execution of this mission. And by say that, we are looking at products here, the route clearance teams, the staging areas, the Type 3 fobs. That is 7 products, if my math does not fail me, and 6 of the 7 were led by South Branch leaders. We had South Branch leaders representing us in the EOC, in Tallahassee. We had South Branch leaders working present in the EOC in Grand Prairie. A bunch of you guys were plugged in remotely. I could not be prouder of the fact that those staging areas, with the exception, I think, of about 3 gray shirts were flown in, were entirely staffed by local Floridians who are stepping up to come out and help their communities. So just huge team effort to like make all this stuff happen very quickly. And like just to help you guys understand our thought process, right? As we're looking at it, we try to choose, we base it on availability and skill set. It's all about speed to need. And the fact is that the South Branch folks that we had were the ones who were most qualified and best positioned to plug into these efforts. That's why we were ending up in the seats that we were in. So it's just a huge testament to the growth and work of this team that you guys were invested, positioned, and ready when the time came to help in the way that you were. So very appreciative of all of that. The map that you guys see here has sort of like the current state shown a little bit. You have the 3 fobs that are populated, and that's overlaid against a population density map and an SVI map to just sort of showcase like how we were looking at counties, how we were making the assessments that we were from the EOC as they were targeting those 5 recon teams out in the field to end up in the formation that we did. A few of sort of like the notable things to think about in terms of that positioning is, you sort of have that band of coastal counties there. That's Taylor, that's Dixie, that's Citrus. Those are the areas where, you had landfall and the hurricane really come on shore, do most of that initial damage sweep. Those are also like very sparsely populated counties, not a lot of density there. That part of Florida is very swampy. So it's not, like Miami with its sandy beaches if you're not a local. It's called the Forgotten Coast because, just a lot of folks kind of drive by it on the interstate, which is further inland, and don't even realize that all those little communities, those beachfront communities that do exist in those counties exist or have people in them. So we were definitely very interested in those communities, concerned that they would not be getting attention, but also knew that that would not be necessarily where the density of need was. That is something that we found further inland in Suwannee County, where that second fob is, and then further north across the state line in Lowndes, Georgia, where Idalia was still at hurricane strength as it was making its way into southern Georgia, and hit a military town just off of the interstate there. So all in all, like our positioning of FOBs was very deliberate. It was to put us in a place where we could help those coastal counties, also help those more population dense areas that were impacted by the storms, and also positioning the FOB so that each FOB was able to help multiple communities, which we'll go into a little bit deeper once we get into the core response itself. But we skipped a little bit ahead in time talking about FOB placement. As we talk through the activation timeline, the first things that we do per our hurricane timeline, and as we are anticipating a response, is positioning route clearance teams and recon teams. So all of you guys who are super hip to our lingo know what I'm talking about, but if you're a little bit newer or aren't tracking on all of it yet, the recon teams are the teams that tell us where the damage intersects with the populations. So basically, they identify the need and help us stand up our core operations responses. Those 3 FOBs that we're talking about, those were all FOBs that were identified by our recon teams based on the damage that they were observing in the communities around them. And then our route clearance teams are teams that fall in on pre-staged equipment. That's a CTL, a saw kit, and then a support trailer to hold all the saws and a support trailer to carry the CTL. And those teams are highly trained gray shirts who go in, and their main purpose is to help restore access for affected communities post-storm. So we had 2 that we positioned on this one. We are lucky enough tonight to have the task force leader from Steinhatchee Spears, Bob McKay, on. So I wanted to pass the microphone over to him to give us a little bit of his experience being a task force leader, one of the very first folks into North Florida after the storm. So Bob, I will pass it over to you, sir.
All right, Drew, thank you. First thing I wanted to point out or just give kudos to my team, and Beth Dumont, and then of course the whole EOC. You know, I mean, it took everybody to really pull this off. You know, we first started on the 29th with assembling the team in Georgia, fueled the vehicles, inventoried, and repacked the gear before we drove down to Ashburn, Georgia. From there, you know, we weathered out the majority of the storm um, overnight into the morning, and by around noon, we were rolling south again. It was a little funny. Our tallest member, Justin Schnoot, you know, of course, ripped out his 2XL rain suit in the first 5 minutes, so we had to stop and get him one more. Um, we had, um, you know, all the way down from Tifton on down, no power. When we got down to Valdosta, it was clear that people were already, you know, becoming desperate there. I had to run into a steel dealer and get some parts, and you know, people were, you know, wanting generators and holding up cash, and you know, nobody knew what to do with no power at the street lights, and it was getting a little crazy. So we rolled on out of there just as soon as possible, clearing one road in Valdosta, and then made our way down towards Mayo. We weren't even across the Florida line before we were clearing the highway. So we probably did, I don't know, 5-10 miles worth of road in Georgia before we got into Florida even. On the 31st, we cleared. Oh well, we first, when we got into Mayo, we got plugged in with the National Guard and secured some billeting with them at a high school, which was just awesome. I mean, for a route clearance team not to have to sleep on wet, soggy ground the first night is really nice. And major points to whoever that made the TR connection with the Florida Senator and got us plugged in there. On the 31st, the next day, we wound up clearing 16 miles of Highway 367 in Lafayette and Taylor counties. And like Drew said, these counties are very rural. So, you know, the majority of their roads are dirt. And, you know, you may go down a road and there only be 2 or 3 houses, but, you know, that's how it is. But you know, we started out on highways, and as the op rolled on, we worked down to smaller roads, and sometimes with just 2 or 3 houses on them. Let's see. We had on the first and second of the month, we cleared various roads throughout Lafayette County. Had lunch with the TR VIPs, Art, Jeff, and Nick, before moving on to Steinhatchee. And then up the coast to meet with Route Clearance Team 2 at the soon-to-be FOB in Perry. Cleared the neighborhood roads in Perry for a full day the next day. And then on 9/4, we were set to return to Loganville so that we could reset and restock. We had one more job in Madison, so we stopped in there and took care of that job. And while we were there, the fire department came up and said, "Hey, we've got a job that's too big for us. Could you clear this road for us?" And so, you know, we had to see what that was, and it turned out to be a 51-inch water oak that had fallen across a major road. So that was a good way to finish up our route clearance. That's really about it. On a lighter note, you know, there was a lot of good humor and camaraderie on our team. But one of the funny points was when we were trying to come up with a team name. The team came back. I texted them while we were traveling down the road and said, "Hey, you know, what do you think is a good one?" And Jim Dawkins piped up with his, and he said mullet run. And so, knowing that he was from South Georgia, I took it as a funny dig on his North Florida brethren, and didn't really think anything more of it. But the next morning over breakfast, we all had a good laugh when he explained he was referring to the fish rather than the haircut. So that was it for us. Back to you, Drew.
Thank you, Bob. And thank you for the on-the-ground perspective and leadership out there. One of the most difficult environments we send gray shirts into, because it is just such an unknown, and there's so much sort of figure it out as you go. So Bob is one of the leaders with the experience and the mindset to get it done. Some cool foot stomping here, very unofficial stats. So that's why they're not in a slide, so you can't screenshot them and report them out and get me in trouble later. But we cleared almost 5,000 cubic yards of debris. That's about 1.5 Olympic swimming pools worth between the two teams, and cleared almost 300 obstructions in the road. So that is a ton of work. That's more work than we documented during our Ian stand-up last year. Which is, just huge testament to the teams that we had in the field, the work everyone did to get them deployed, and just then all the efforts of everyone to make sure that we're getting everything tracked and maintained, and able to execute in the moment. So we continue to sort of grow and expand this program. If you are interested in it, you see the two task force leaders listed there. Hit them up. They can tell you sort of the process and skill sets you need, and make sure that the next time the balloon goes up, you know how to get in a seat. All right, staging areas. Wanted to take a quick moment to talk about these. Unfortunately, Jude couldn't hop on tonight. He had a conflict, but huge win for us here from an organizational perspective in terms of getting speed to need and ensuring we had the right gear, the right equipment positioned, so that as fobs were identified, we were able to quickly stand them up with the equipment that we needed. Also, good lesson learned for us as an organization. It meant that when fobs perhaps didn't have everything that they needed right away, it really shortened the amount of time it took to kind of get replacement stuff out there, and clarify, needs on the ground. So we were coming at this particular area from two places. One of them, so Jude and this team down in Southwest Florida have been working very hard on the long-term recovery supplies that came in after Hurricane Ian, used with some grant money there to kind of build out some extra equipment for Florida. That team's been working on that for months. And Jude sort of had finagled this awesome RV space that you see there. So that team was set up to work indoors, out of the sun, getting trailers prepped and ready, picking up trucks, making sure that everything was ready to go, so that when it was needed, it was ready to move very quickly. And then we quickly established another one out in Jacksonville, Florida. The thought process, just so everyone's on the same page about establishing in Jacksonville, was ease of access, right? It was right off major interstates, had major international airport with plenty of flights, 24-hour car rentals where we could pick up as many strike team vehicles as we needed. And then it had direct lines into the areas of impact, so very easy to get into the landfall areas right along the coast that we highlighted earlier, or to juke north up into Georgia, and perhaps further on, depending on what the storm did. So we established a secondary staging area there, gave us a landing spot for equipment and vehicles that we were sending out there. We did, hot shot runs with trucks. We were using that as an area if we were going to forward stage any additional response trailers. Didn't end up using it for that. But then we also used it to help pick up and reserve strike team vehicles, so that as we were able to bring in flyers, very easy to pop them to the airport. They would just hop in a truck and off they would go to the response with the proper vehicle to help sustain those fobs. So worked really well for us to have those spots identified and have the equipment on hand close to the response prior to having a firm fob in hand. Something that we will continue to refine. but also just big call out to that Florida team for being such an active part of it. You guys were great guinea pigs for us. And because you made this such a big success, I know we'll be doing more of them and making them more a part of how we kind of manage this process and get equipment on the ground. Also, yeah, did see a question in the chat about, how decisions were made about where equipment would come from and what we were using. So we had probably more equipment identified and available than we actually ended up committing to this response. Couple of thought processes behind that, right? Like at the time of landfall, we have a lot more unknowns than knowns. We know generally the track of the storm, but we don't know how much damage there will be, how much damage there will be to populated areas. So we're just trying to sort of accumulate as much stuff as we can get our hands on. And that's TR owned equipment, that's partner equipment that we can borrow. And the more that we have on hand, the better we are, the more flexible we can be in allocating that equipment and getting it into the field. The second piece of that we are sort of thinking through is like, how many bodies are we going to have, right? If we have lots and lots of gray shirts, we need to have equipment for all of them. And in general, for us as an organization, it's a lot easier for us to rapidly move and utilize our own TR equipment that's already stored in trailers, and the inventory is up to date, everything's set up the way we like. If we're using partner equipment, it tends to have to be a little bit more of a discussion. Has to kind of be something that like, okay, yeah, this is what we want. This is where you want your equipment to go. We'll put it to work. And so from that, like that was how some of that stuff was worked out, where we were staffing a couple of fobs there with equipment from a partner called Toolbank. If you haven't looked them up, they're a great organization that has both like a blue skies and a gray skies arm to it, sort of like how we do. But not going to dive too far down that rabbit hole. But so that led to some of the allocation decisions in terms of timing and positioning. But I think we ended up with Florida trailer, an Alabama trailer, and a Georgia trailer, all engaged at different fobs. We have a couple of Florida trailers still in reserve for any additional needs that crop up from either long-term work or additional storms that might come into play. All right, so this leads us to Operation Not Forgotten. Operation Not Forgotten is that main response that we were talking about. This is one of the maps that I think is our neatest new tools. It is the driving radius around each fob, which kind of gives you a sphere of influence for each fob. Really shows you how, that county overlay and that damage overlay positions really well with where these fobs are located, so that we have a really good area of influence around each one that enables us to support multiple communities that were impacted by the storm. So that coastal one, that Taylor County area, which is supporting Taylor, Dixie, and Lafayette counties right there on the coast. That one is a type 3 response. Our current IC is Carol McCoy, but Oscar was our man out there who helped get it stood up over a week ago now. Currently has a demob date of 10/16. Suwannee County, which is a type 3 fob as well. That one is up just a little bit inland there, basically right along those two intersecting interstates there, supporting Suwannee, Hamilton, and Madison counties. A little bit more densely populated area than the Taylor County fob to the south. Jarrett Brown is out there right now with a current demob date of October 3rd. And then the last fob that we stood up was the one up in Lowndes County, Georgia, mainly focused on that area around Valdosta, Georgia, which is the town that's like just north of the border. It's right next to a military base there. It's supporting Lowndes and Brooks counties, and if you look at like the way those counties sort of are wrapped up in each other, you see why those are the two that it's supporting. Initial IC out there is Brent McKee with a demob date of 10/5/2023. A couple of quick call outs on this. Right now, we do have all waves booked out. That means if you are signed up to deploy to Operation Not Forgotten, you likely have already gotten your reconfirmation. may even already have your plane tickets if you're, a little ways out, may not have plane tickets. If you don't have those, don't freak out. Mo is working through the process on them. But they have been trying to get folks booked as well in advance as they can so people can make the plans that they need to. If you have not gotten your reconfirmation notice yet, it is because, there's always people whose plans change and people drop out. But they're really far ahead of the ball game on this one. So, in previous years where you've seen us doing a lot of last minute booking, that isn't the case with this storm. But if you haven't gotten that shoulder tap yet, that probably means that you are not going at this time unless you hear otherwise from Mo. Now, that being said, all of these targeted demob dates, that's based on work and gray shirt availability. If we continue to identify good work in these areas, we'll look to extend if we have gray shirts to support. So you guys may see additional CTAs come out to support some of these areas. That's still sort of an ongoing discussion and process. We'll continue to monitor and have a lot more discussion on that as we go. That being said, I want to kind of get into sort of the nitty gritty of some of these responses, how they're shaping up. And so first, I'm going to hand it over to Oscar, who really helped get that Taylor County fob up and running. Was on the ground with no power, no showers, I think no tools for a day or two, but made it all happen and gave us some excellent outputs as a result. So, Oscar, over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Drew. Here, a couple of thoughts. Hey, folks, my name is Oscar, and I had the privilege, the honor, and the privilege of being on one of the recon teams. You heard Drew said that there were 5 recon teams. Me and my teammate Valdesio was on one of them, and a couple lessons learned from there. We had never heard, I at least had never heard of Taylor County, of that part of Florida, and you might find yourself on a recon team, and you might find yourself in a place you don't know. And I would suggest this. We found success in going to the jurisdiction, whatever was the jurisdiction. Basically, we were in a county, so we went to the county seat. That's Perry. We found the EOC, and we went there. So that's where we started, and that's where we found our success. We found our success also thanks to the work Tanya's team, other teams, and perhaps last year in Ian, already the emergency director, that's what they call him there, knew who we were. And so that helped us a lot. We were not swimming upstream. It was not who's Team Rubicon. But then after that, we had to earn our own creds. And basically that came through consistency of spending time with the leaders, of getting to know the leaders of that EOC that day, the next day, the next day. And to this day, they have an EOC meeting at 07 every morning, and we have a rep or more folks there. So if you want to make a relationship, relationships are take time. And so you have to take the time to do that. So we made the relationships, and they pointed us to the damaged areas. It was not too hard to see that it was a place that we should invest some time and energy. The challenge then became finding billets. In the initial sequencing of after storms, there's lots of outside agencies that come in. They're all looking for billets. There are buildings that were fine a couple of days ago now have holes in the roofs. No one has power, so there's a bit of a competition for billets. So it's about identifying areas that have the most need, about identifying billet options quickly. It's about speed and getting in and getting yourself established and being, as my friend Carol says, not letting perfect get in the way of good enough. And so we were offered a billet about 20 minutes south. And I will tell you, initially, I was a little hesitant about going south of what seemed to be the main focus, Perry, but keeping an eye on that our area of operation was all of Taylor County going into Dixie, a place to be. And so we were offered a church, and the pastor came out and he said, "We have no power, we have no water, we can't offer you much but a place to stay." And we said, "Cool, if we can lay our heads and lay our cots down, then we're good to go." And so that's what we did. We established there. And what you should know also is that when you see the calls to action and they say austere, it means austere. Now, there's probably worse places in the world to find yourself in, but These are not the 21st century American comforts that you're hopefully used to. There is no power, there is no water, there is no showers, there is no toilets, and anything else like that. There are no places to get medicine. There's nothing like that. So if you find yourself in a situation like that, first do an honest appraisal of yourself, that's an environment you can go into and be successful, and also take things with you. Anything with a battery is probably helpful. Take some comfort items, whatever kind of little comfort foods or comfort medicines or anything like that you might need extras of. You're not going to find it there. So it is also the time of greatest amount of need with the least amount of resources. So we had 100 things going on at the same time, but the rest of Big TR had 1,000 things going on at the same time. And so we got great support from our field leadership team, reps, Beth, and then Vic. And it's just about making it happen. It's about relationships, finding people, identifying needs, finding people who will share their tools, finding people and just making things work out. And as long as it's within our scope of practice, we can help out. And so I would say, and then the other motto that we had was that every day gets better. Okay. So the next day is a little better than yesterday. Every day gets better. Every day gets better. Just make it better every day. You still might not have power and AC and all that business, but you can make things better. So you have to think it's definitely a place for creativity and energy and being willing to absorb some of the discomfort so that you can help people who are far less comfortable than you are. We appreciate some of the folks like Son and friends who came out and lent a helping hand. It's always good to have their visitors, but it's even better when they put on chaps and get out there and start cutting. And so we appreciate that. So appreciate my teammates. They all stuck in there. You see some pictures of our finance section chief and our brilliant whiz kid, Siddle out there. And the other thing you need to know is that you will have visitors, and they just need to be integrated as part of your team. They might be BrandCom folks, they might be Roku folks, they might be people from the EOC, and just need to integrate them as part of your team. Understand what their needs are, and just integrate their needs with your needs. So, Drew, that's all I have, unless you have any specific questions.
No, Oscar, super humble and incredible as always. Thank you for your leadership out there, my friend. I did want to dig a little deeper on one topic, but I'm going to kick it over to Carol for this, because you heard Oscar call out JP, our finance section chief, and this is something TR has been digging deeper into, is making sure we get those finance section chiefs embedded early. So Carol, I was hoping you could kind of talk us through some of that.
Yeah, Drew, don't steal my thunder. Hi, I'm Carol Harrison. I am South Branch Finance Leader, Support Associate, and I could not be prouder of the South Branch Finance team. They stepped up and really rocked it out. And there was a wide range of experience on the team. Some of them have been in for years and years. Others of us are new. So I certainly appreciated their patience as things developed. One of the first things that the finance team does is when an event rolls around like this, we have a shared schedule. And I asked everybody to update the schedule for the next 45 days. Once I did that, it shook out fairly easily that JP would take the first run. He had, we overloaded him. He had Recon Team Alpha, Recon Team Bravo. He had both of the route clearance teams, and he had both of the staging areas. It all just kind of shook out that way. He handled it like a trooper, and I understand he still had time to do a little work in operations. So he is a whiz kid, and we look forward to him going further in TR as he grows. All right, so mentioning that JP had Alpha and Bravo, Chris Demanga had Charlie and Delta recons. So that was the first step, as y'all all know, as to get these operations up and running. So it just happened to shake out perfectly that Recon Bravo did not go any further, so that left JP with Alpha. Alpha's bloodlines went from Recon 1 to Recon Alpha to, what did they become? Taylor, Advon, Taylor, Response. So he took that. These FSCs have a tendency to take pride in ownership in these operations as they spin up. So it was a great service for them to take it all the way from recon to response and to actually get out on the field and do what they're trained to do is phenomenal. Chris did the same thing with Recon Charlie and Delta. Charlie was Levy County, which, as you know, stopped after Advon. So he was able to run Delta from beginning to end. And he is actually still working Sewanee. And Deb Latrill, who wasn't going to be able to hit the road right off the bat, ended up at Lowndes, which was later to the party. So she was able to make her concert and still make it to the event the second day that it was up and running. So we had 3 FSCs on the ground at operations at one time. It's magnificent. Now working at the EOC, for me, obviously that was my first time in that environment for Team Rubicon, and I could not be happier with the way things turned out. It was a very cohesive group. There was open lines of communications, although sometimes it took finance eavesdropping on some of the conversations, but it was an open line of communication. Just keep me close enough to be able to hear what everybody else is saying and we'll be just fine. But all in all, it was a great opportunity to finance to get out in the field, to teach those a lot of brand new gray shirts, how to use Concur, how to get them set up, and keep track of mom's money and focus on gifts and kinds. And like I said, I could not be prouder of what the finance team did. That's it for me. Unless anybody has any questions, I'll turn it back to Drew.
Fully agree, Carol. Super excited about that. And guys, we've learned through painful experience how important it is to get their finance folks in there early, set it up right, and keep all of our expenses tracked, get a handle on those gifts in kind early, just because it makes our reporting accurate, which makes our donors happy, which gives us more fuel that we need to respond better, faster, longer. So
we actually also worked on training because we had 3 different turnovers within our FSCs. So we were able to train on what needs to be that continuity of operations as it went from one FSC to another, because Tyrone is currently in Taylor.
Even better. That's just we train and we fight at the same time. Our next fob on the list is our Sewanee fob. I did see Jarrett on earlier, but he had to drop off. So just a couple of call outs here and we'll keep on rolling through. But that fob is set up at one of the FEMA camps there. If you guys stayed at the Charlotte or Lee fobs last year, you know what I'm talking about. Real big Cadillac experience for a hurricane response. That being said, if you are signed up to go there, hoping to get that Cadillac response, tracking that we're looking at that closing down in the next week or so, Rose threw her hand up. She might have an on-the-ground update, so I'll pass it to her real quick.
Yeah. Hi, guys. We're actually out here in Sewanee County. I am the OSC right now. I have my LSC as well, and it's Teresa. We're doing great here. We had a great setup right when we got on the ground. The Recon Advon team had us going. I'm sorry. Right now they are relaxing, as you can hear. They're at the campfire. They're excited. We just finished a great week down here. A lot of work getting done. We've cleared almost 20 work orders already. Tons more in the line, waiting for our more teams to come in tomorrow. So that's why you hear the little bit more of a relaxation, because some are about to go home after a week down here. Yeah, everything's been great. We have great hosts here. Suwannee County has been absolutely amazing with the whole team and welcoming us. A lot of trees down here, so if you need some trigger time behind that saw, come on down. Is all I got to say. We also had the forward team out here this past week, and one of the great forwards right here that they donated to us actually had powered our command center for 3 whole days. I think it took about a quarter of a tank.
Yeah.
Roughly quarter to half a tank ran the whole command center for a full day. So these are great trucks to have on the ground as well with us whenever we're out in the field and we're needing that little bit of a boost in electricity. So other than that, we look forward to everybody coming down here if you can. It's been going great. Jarrett's been amazing so far as an IC running the team. The team's been great. We've got more great. we got some great gray shirts headed home. We got another team coming in. And that's about it. Thank you for allowing me to talk and give you a quick update down here.
They got hacked by the cartels. The app. Now it's like the entire thing.
Somebody's television show was briefed unmuted. Rose, thank you for the update live from the ground. And I'm going to go last, certainly not least, up to Valdosta, Georgia. Brent, I see you're on the call. Are you able to give us an update from there, sir?
Yes, I can. Now, first, let me thank John Wasser putting this together. It was amazing. Our people coming in, they flew into Jacksonville. It was a handoff like never, ever. It was, got to throw out a handout to him. And so we're on up here at 5. We've got like 38 work orders in the queue. We've closed out 14 of them. The area has been awesome as far as the help. We started out same thing, 3 days in a Bible camp with no electricity until our OSC went out there and we cut some trees down so that they could get the power company out here. And day 0, full story here about the route clearance team. Jim Dawkins, who is on the route clearance team, lives in Valdosta. While out on the route clearance team, his house got hit. He stayed on the route clearance team. His wife moved to another house to take shelter. He stayed on the route clearance team until he got done. So day 0 for us was run over to his house, get as much done as we could. We ended up cutting down a tree, getting it off his roof. The next day we went back with a tarp team because we didn't have any trailer here yet. We tarped his roof, helped him out, cut some more stuff. That would probably be the biggest highlight we had, because then the man, he brings us like 4 smoked pork butts. Then the next night he brings smoked chicken. So it's been awesome. We've ate well, and we got to help a gray shirt out that stuck it out and stayed on rock clearance when could have very easily just walked away. And it's been great. And the support we've gotten, it's amazing. We've got a great team here. Got Robert Castillo on operations. I got Davis doing logs. He was supposed to be operations deputy, but we flipped him into logs. And I got Kathleen Cook here as my PLC. So we're hanging out. Unfortunately, I lose a couple of them tomorrow, but somebody, and I think I'm going to make a phone call and try to get that person here. So I appreciate everything. We appreciate the support. You all have a wonderful night. I am going to have to hop off of here. Thanks for everything. You all have a great night.
Thank you, Brent. And Brent, Jarrett, Rose, Oscar, all you guys out there on the ground, all you about to head out. Thank you for your leadership out there. It is what makes all of this possible. All right, we still have a few more things to get through. So gonna change gears a little bit. Wanted to highlight for these next points just our organizational ability, as I said at the top of the call, to walk and chew gum. So if you guys have been with us through a couple of past seasons, one of the big things that we run into a lot with these big stand-ups is resource constraints, which leads to cancellations or stoppages of other events, which are lower priority than the big hurricane responses. And everybody on this team has been doing an incredible job of being understanding, working through what we still can do and what we can't do. As a team, we've been doing more than I think we have in a long time. So have some other operational updates to share of things that we've done, and perhaps a few things to come. I know we're running closer to our end of hour, so these teams will quickly give us some highlights on some other operations in queue. So we're going to start off with Kate, who's going to roll us back last month to the last thing we did right before this hurricane came in.
Yes, right before this hurricane came in, the Kennesaw team, as usual, said anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So you're going to hear about 2 operations that ran simultaneously within 2 hours of each other. Operation School of Hard Knocks was in Knox County, Tennessee. Took place August 11th through 26th, so really right before the hurricane response kicked off. That was in response to an EF2 tornado that hit in Knox County, Tennessee. A couple of things that I want to highlight from this operation. Number one, in that top right-hand photograph, you will see the man, the myth, the legend, the task force leader, Bob McKay, who graced us with his presence, not only as a chainsaw operator, but also as a heavy equipment operator on this operation. And we are super proud of the work that he does downrange. So just wanted to shout out Bob, because he's one of our hardest workers here in the GO. But also on the left-hand side of the slide in the photo there, with the gray shirt with kind of the green helmet and one with the orange helmet, I wanted to shout out that we had over 60% local volunteers that came out to this operation. It was a huge response in a geographic region that had not seen a disaster since 2015. Those 2 gentlemen in that photograph are both local doctors who took time off of their practice to come out and give us several days. And they were really, really awesome. Doc Stockton had a great time out there running the saws, but just really happy to have those 60% local volunteers. And the last shout out that I have from this operation, besides the fact that we moved approximately 75,000 cubic feet of debris, which is 0.9 of an Olympic swimming pool, just putting that out there, is that we were the only VOAD engaged in this response operation. So we could not have done that without our local leadership team. So shout out to the East Tennessee Metro. Drew, if you'll go to the next slide. Simultaneously, we were running Operation Jenkins Journey, which is the 4th recovery operation in 1 year for the Eastern Kentucky flooding. So I did put there on the slide in the middle that in 365 days, these are the operations that we completed in that area of Eastern Kentucky. So Operation Appalachian Spirit was huge. Most of you guys were involved in that. But we have since had 4 operations. Operation Jenkins Journey, they moved 4,000 cubic feet of debris between August 9th and August 13th, and they mucked out 12 rooms. So this small but mighty force continues to drive impact. Shout out to our Eastern Kentucky team, who has not given up on helping these folks recover and continues to plan operations, more upcoming in October. So we're not going to quit on the people of Eastern Kentucky, and we look forward to seeing what's coming next. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you, Kate. And another area that's been super busy is Georgia, which wrapped up Westagoo Crossing. Over to Adam for that update.
Good evening. Adam Garner, the Operations Associate for Georgia and Alabama. I just wanted to make a quick hit here about Westagoo Crossing. This was a flooding event that happened in Augusta, Georgia, back in June, and it received no attention initially. Eventually, the Richmond County EMA reached out to Georgia VOAD and asked for some assistance. And we started looking into this and we're able to help out, get into that area, go down to South Augusta and help out, get 3 homes mucked out of folks that would otherwise not have received assistance. So once again, right, just the South Branch out there taking care of these low attention disasters and getting help where it's needed. So kudos and thanks to everybody who helped out with that op. Appreciate everyone here.
Thank you, Adam. And then another big one, North Florida just been staying busy even before the hurricane arrived. Tanya is going to tell us about Mitigator.
All right, so the objective here was to remove leaning or fallen trees left over from Hurricane Michael, as well as some extensive underbrush. And in doing so, we were reducing the wildfire risk and providing a safer operating environment for the Bay County EOC. The team was able to move about 6,000 cubic yards of debris and drop about 17 trees, which was incredible considering the conditions. We joked that the operation name should have been something like Hell's Front Porch or something like that, because the heat index was well over 100 degrees every day. And because of that, we had to implement the work rest cycles to keep everybody safe, but we didn't get as much done as we'd hoped. However, we will be back. Special shout outs to our C&G staff. There were a lot of first timers in their roles, and kudos to Doc Brown. She completed her first op as IC, and I appreciate having the opportunity to see how the sausage is made. And I hope I didn't bug y'all too much with all of my questions. It was just awesome to be there.
It was super exciting to see North Florida get it done. If only we'd known it was the precursor to the hurricane, we might have made you wait a week or two, but that is the way of things. And then last but not least, just wrapped over this past weekend, Trisha is going to talk about C'est La Tree.
Hey guys, we just finished up in Paris, Texas at a Cultivate youth camp where they teach children that don't normally have access to nature, about different animals, things like that. They've been waiting on us to come and help them since November of 2022 when they had a tornado in their area. They were still able to host over 800 kids this spring and summer, despite the storm damage. So you can imagine the excitement when we left Sunday, and the area was cleaned up for those kids to come in next spring and summer, and it will look a whole lot better. There was a lot of good cutting this weekend. It was really exciting to watch one of our Houston rebuilds get his AS1. And then we also had another task book open. Tiki signed off on a lot of tasks this weekend. That was exciting to watch. We had a video from the kids thanking us for everything we were doing. Just good feels all around. I feel like we got a lot of good shit done and made a really, really good impact for that camp and the kids that are going to be going there.
Thanks, Trisha. And all in all, guys, if you haven't gathered it from everything that's been presented, this team has done an incredible amount of work over the last month or so. I know there's still a few other projects still percolating in the pipe. We'll see more come online as we get deeper into the year. We will continue to respond in North Florida and South Georgia as long as we have work and gray shirts to do that work. So all told, we'll remain a very, very busy, very engaged team, and we can only do that with all of the support of all of you. So thanks from me, but I'm going to pass it over now to San to close us out with some inspiring words. San, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Drew. Guys, again, I want to just thank everyone. I really want to start off by thanking the people on the ground, from route clearance to our mighty ICs that lead our command and general staff, Brent, Oscar, and Jared. If you guys have ever been an IC, especially on ops this large, it's just so much work you have to do. And they do it with such calmness, such professionalism, creating that communication and collaboration with all the CNG staff, making sure they're communicating with the EOCs, with the EOC, the field leadership team, and also making sure that the people that are participating in the event are happy. You know, in that austere environment, that they're still happy, they're still committed to service, still committing to serve that community. I applaud all you guys that are willing to step into the arena. And Oscar did something that I had never seen before, the way he kind of described, you know, taking that step into the center of the circle. It's just kind of symbolism of how you step into the arena. And he kind of demonstrated that during one of his sessions, and I thought that was amazing to give you a vision on how that group of people stepped into that circle together, and that's what we do when we're out on these missions. I also was happy to at least meet with one of the route clearance team before they took off from Loganville. So Bob and his team, and you know, Kathy, several others that were a part of that team, to be able to go and chase that storm. I believe Beth put it in a comment that they chased the storm. They made sure they were going to be in the right place, and all the strategy that comes behind doing that. People think that we just throw saws in hands, we just go out and muck out. It's a plan put together by some intelligent people, and these people are on this call and putting those things together. And not only intelligence, but the passion, the compassion, the empathy, the sympathy, and all those things that it takes to get out into that field and put every bit of it. People that you don't even know, you probably will never meet, but if you can put on that the chaps, put on that Tyvek, put on that helmet and get out there and help that community, and don't care about anyone shaking your hand and saying thank you. Those are special people, and we have special people in TR. Just great work. And also just want to applaud the EOC. I know a lot of people don't see how we put people out there. This conversation started by myself and a couple of the directors and our VP talking about, hey, should we go? Is it time to go? As Drew mentioned, we didn't really know if it was going to be a tropical depression, tropical storm, but we were trying to kind of evaluate what we're going to do. And I remember sending a Teams chat to Jeff saying, hey, we got to activate the EOC. And immediately a day later, we had people flying, heading to the EOC, already collaborating on how we're going to move equipment, how we're going to move people. So it takes a lot of work. And Oscar, you said it really good on, you know, it may not be perfect when you get there, but every day we're trying to get perfection. Every day we're trying to make sure that happens. We know that we probably didn't have all the logs and all the supplies and equipment that was needed on the ground, but believe me, it was coming a day later, 2 days later, but we were trying to move it. And for people like on this call that are special and understand that and know that they need to just accomplish a mission as much as they can until everything is fully loaded for them to do everything they need to do, is special people. So it takes a little journey to get there, but we were there. If you can see what the route clearance team did, in a matter of days, they did more than we did in EN in 4 months. You know, that's just freaking amazing. And to get them out of the comfort of their living rooms, their homes and all that stuff, to be able to get into those vehicles and go down that road and the unknown. I know Taylor County, Oscar. You know, I'm a little ways north from there, but you said it perfectly. You don't know. You don't know the environment, but you go into it. And the main reason why you're able to do that, because you know the purpose of serving. You know the outcomes that's going to happen once you're there and once you leave, whether it's 3 days, 4 days, a week, 2 weeks. As long as you spend an hour serving, you've done your job. And I applaud everyone that had an impact on what we're doing now. Now we have about 2 to 3 weeks. Who knows how long we're going to be there? It may be extended, it may be cut short. But we know that we're going to have great ships on the ground doing what they need to do to make sure those communities are made whole any way possible. I want to also thank a lot of the people that were, a lot of the different sections that were in the EOC. So we look at mobilization, we look at operations, field leadership, logs, development, brand comms. All those different departments play such a big role in how we get to where we need to be on the ground. How do we get people to even fund what we do to get our gracious out there, to get that equipment out there? Those trailers that you saw in the video at the staging area, I mean, the photo in the staging area, those were from the funds that we were, because we did such an excellent job in Ian, we received a grant. And a lot of that equipment that you see, Jude, the logistics team, all the other Florida leadership teams building those strike team kits, building those trailers so we can move out. That's because of the great work that you guys did during Ian. We were able to get funding. And just recently, Tanya and myself received an email from Volunteer Florida saying that we were one of the companies or one of the organization to receive $50K. And that's after being there for 5 to 7 days, being on the ground. We're already getting $50K from the state, understanding our impact. So again, I applaud you. I thank you. We have a little bit more to go. And the only reason why you can see me with chaps on is because the great trainers that were on this call, Steve and Robert, took the time to teach me how to use a saw properly. And so I can be able to go out and do those things. And I'm a firm believer, if you're a leader, you need to lead by example. You need to get out there and do the work. You can't sit around and work on strategies. You have to fully understand. So we have all leaders on this call. Get out there and make sure you understand why you have people doing things out in the field for you and with you. That's the best way you'll be able to work on strategies to make things better, to enhance things, to maneuver, to pivot. If you're out there seeing it, if you're asking the questions, if you're humble enough to be able to say, okay, I understand it, or I don't understand, let me know. And Steve and Robert know that I said that a lot of times when they were training me and when I was on site with Steve. And it was an honor, because I think it's the first time since I got my Saw 1 to actually be on an op with Steve. And it was a pleasure to see him lead, to see him understand people's personalities, to make sure that people were able to work together and get stuff accomplished. And so, Steve, again, applaud you and Robert for entrusting me with the skills to be able to go out there to do the work. So that's all I have. I will go ahead and transition back to our moderator and our quasi weather channel meteorologist, Drew Hanna.
Thank you, son. As in all things, I am an enthusiastic amateur. Nothing more, nothing less. Hey, y'all. Super appreciate everybody's time and attention tonight. I hope you learned something. I hope you had a little fun. I hope you got inspired to click that deployment button either on one of our Florida ops or one of the local responses, which will continue to pop up around you. Until next time, we really appreciate you, are thankful for everything this team does. The team will continue to hang out for a little bit if there's any questions y'all want to throw our way. But other than that, have a wonderful evening and a great week. We'll see you soon.
How about them Cowboys?